Hi, my name is Donna Knappel, and this is my daughter Taylor Rose. She's 18 years old, and she was vaccine injured. MMR vaccine injury at 15 months, just like the CDC whistleblower explained in his conversation and in the documents. When Taylor was born, she was born with jaundice, and at 4 days old, they decided to give her a hepatitis B shot. 3 weeks later, they gave her another hepatitis B, and that's when all the fun started to begin.
Stop. Why did they do that? Why did she have 2 lots within 3 weeks?
I do not know.
There was no explanation?
No, 1 month. So one was 4 days old because it wasn't done exactly at birth. It was done 4 days old, and another one was a month, but it was really like 3 weeks later when I looked back at the records.
Was there any explanation? So one was in hospital?
One was right out of the hospital.
Right out of the hospital, but with your paediatrician?
With pediatrician.
And then what was the explanation? Was that the same paediatrician that gave her the...
The second time, hepatitis B, correct.
But what was the explanation for that? That's not
Well, they had to do a series of 3 in a certain time. And right after that one is when she got her first ear infection and was placed on antibiotics. And then the following set was like the DVT, Hib, and polio, and that's when she just couldn't tolerate formulas. She was getting eczema. She had upper respiratory infections, ear infections. She couldn't sleep in a crib because of the mucus. And then she started with failure to thrive. She wasn't growing at 6 months. And there was no explanation. And she did every test out there. And then after that, she became anemic and started developing a breast. And no one knew why. And she wasn't eating. And my mother used to come to the doctors with me because they would say I wasn't feeding her because they couldn't find anything in the test. I became the one to look at. So remember, you used to come with me.
They couldn't find anything wrong, right?
And she'd be like, well, she's feeding her, and she's feeding her baby food, and they're like...
So explain, so they thought maybe Donna as a mother was doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Kept taking her off foods, trying this, taking her off. What thing what she went through. It's terrible.
That's terrible.
And during that time, she was developing the pains in her stomach. Bad pains, sweating profusely. And we had no idea what was wrong with her, and no one could help us. And we went to the emergency rooms and different hospitals. We actually even drove to Boston when she was a year old because of the breast development, and no one knew what was wrong with her. And at that time, they said, you're in the wrong hands. You need a gastroenterologist. Remember? And developmental-wise, at that point, at 12 months, they said she was fine. And then after that, we came home and we saw a gastroenterologist who did lab work, and they found low immunoglobulins, especially the low IgGs, meaning she doesn't have an immune system. And the doctor at that day gave her a chickenpox shot.
So he knew the results when he gave the chickenpox. So, and he still felt that was okay.
They told me she would die if I didn't do it because my intuition was there. Like, do not let them touch. I'm like, this isn't making sense to me. Immune system, immunization.
So let's just wait a minute. So he had the results that her immune system was shot, and he told you that she would die if she didn't have the chickenpox vaccine.
Yep. Remember that? And I came home and my parents said...
And I couldn't believe it because I said, first of all, she was sick, and they gave her the shot.
So sick, right. She was sick. She was always
sick. And I said, they never give you a shot if she's sick. I remember when my kids were younger, I had to bring them back the following month because he wouldn't give them, the shots at that time.
Single shots.
Single shots. They were single shots.
We got like 4 in our life back in the 70s. We didn't even get any shots.
And then, after that, she became sick again. And then it was time for the MMR at 15 months. And they gave her the MMR, the Hib, and I believe it was polio. And within 1 week, she had the measles. We had to go back with the rash. She was so sick. Her constipation, everything, she was just so bad and so sick, and the pains were so bad. We were now with a different gastroenterologist in Manhattan, and we had to go to the ER, remember? If she was in pain, rush her to the ER. I mean, it was horrible. We saw her.
She was there for a week and they didn't know what was wrong with her.
And from that moment, I rushed her to an ER with a pain attack around Christmas. The next day, her right big toe turned blue.
Yes.
And we went back to the ER, and they had no idea what was wrong. And again, I was blamed for burning her, for putting on shoes that were too small.
Right.
Remember that?
Right.
And we wound up on antibiotics, and the infection was spreading down the bottom of her foot, and it was eating her skin, and no one knew what was wrong with her. And they admitted her into the hospital for 7 days. They put on IV antibiotics. Her foot was getting worse. She didn't really feel the pain. And I yelled at them, and I said, I want an x-ray of her stomach now. And when they did that, her whole intestine was impacted with stool. And they cleaned her out. And once they started to clean her out, her toes started, you could see a little bit of improvement. And of course, they called it a coincidence.
What did they say about the fact that she had measles?
Nothing.
And had the
That
MMR?
happens sometimes, and they noted it. I actually have the pediatrician note. They noted it, that it was a reaction to the MMR shot with the fever. And
But,
then,
oh well, no one reported it.
no. And then from there, she was in the hospital for 7 days. She came out, and she was just completely different. Remember that? I'm like, something happened to her. I don't know what. But that's when we really saw a decline in her awareness. And in that spring, my mother would watch her for me, and she's so defiant. Remember, she wasn't hearing, even though we were talking to her. We thought she was deaf.
Right.
So now we're taking her to the doctors and getting her hearing tested. Remember that?
Right.
And then my mother saw an article in the paper about autism,
And I said, I hope that's not what it is.
and she gave it to me because I hope that's
And
not
then
what
she
it is.
followed up. She read, went to the library.
I went. Oh yeah.
Which is what we had to do in those
Wait.
days.
So what happened
Right.
was they sent me to a neurologist, and he said, your daughter has autism. She'll never speak. She's not going to do many things. And my aunt actually came with me. She's now passed. My mother's sister, because she didn't want me going by myself when he gave me the news. And I said to him, I go, autism? I don't know anything about it. It's not in our family. I go, she's been sick. You know, it's not making sense to me. And he goes, research. So I went to the library and I found the book, Unraveling the Mystery of Autism and PDD by Karen Sorosi. And I started reading it, and I saw about the ear infections, the milk, the dairy. That's what they had her on to try and make her grow. They're giving her Pediasure. She's getting, remember?
Right.
Ear infections and everything. It was just horrible. And when I read that book and I saw about the bowel disease, I said, oh dear God, this she has. This is where the pains are coming from. This is it.
And
Remember?
the pains were bad because I watched her one day. There's
couldn't
nothing
console
that
her.
Always.
I couldn't
She's
console
an
her.
infant. Nobody
It's
can hold
terrible.
it but you.
She screamed and screamed.
All the time.
Put her in the swing, kept her on my lap, trying to stand her up, and the legs they just wouldn't go. It's terrible.
She was falling.
And the saddest cry Taylor has.
She
It was
did.
you would cry
She
when
did.
cried. It was the saddest cry.
This no.
And then
This is twisted.
And what about with the light bulb that
And
time?
then-
No.
Yeah.
she
She would feel no pain.
didn't
felt
really feel
no
pain.
pain.
And my son, I have two older sons. One's going to be 23 and one's 27. Well, actually 24. Chris is going to be 24. And my middle son was doing his homework, and he watched his sister touch the lamp. So he was like, wow,
bulb,
no,
the light bulb,
the
the hot
bulb,
bulb.
yeah, the bulb. And he's like, wow, no reaction from
Yeah.
her. So he did it. And he came out screaming, crying, and that's how we actually knew she burnt her hands. Otherwise, we wouldn't have known. And then we saw, after reading the book Unraveling the Mystery, I found Dr. Boris, who's an immunologist, and he treated kids with autism. And he worked in a practice that was next to his pediatric practice where Dr. Kriegsman was. And Dr. Kriegsman then became Taylor's pediatrician, and also Dr. Boris showed Dr. Kriegsman Andy Wakefield's studies on this bowel disease. So Dr. Kriegsman then started replicating them, and Taylor was one of his beginning patients in doing that testing, the colonoscopy and stuff. And you were with me when
Right,
she
she
was
had
had her colonoscopy. Her first one was in January of 2002, and it was at Lenox Hill Hospital. And I knew she had it, and he told me she has the autistic encephalitis. And I came out to you, my mother goes, I don't believe it. I'm like, come with me.
Right.
So she came with me, and we spoke with my mother, And then we had to pick up my sons from religion, and the priest did anointment of the sick on Taylor. And we were all there.
Right.
And that was the last time she was in pain from her stomach.
How are you feeling now?
Good.
Good.
But she still has lots of troubles with that stomach of hers. She has to eat special foods, right? Tell her what else. You're in school, you work. Tell her that you work at McDonald's.
So you're in school. What year are you in school?
Senior.
Senior year. And what is it that you feel that you might like to do with your life?
Dog grooming, training,
Dog training
and grooming.
and grooming. Wonderful. Very important. We need that.
She's amazing with
And tell her what else you like to do.
Yes.
Your pictures.
Take pictures of dogs.
Take pictures of dogs. Well, you'll do very well with that. There's a lot of people that love their dogs. Wow. So we're really sorry that you went through that. And you as well. Grandparents are really important to us because we hear from them and we hear the pain that you guys go through because Donna's your baby.
Right.
And then you have her pain and your granddaughter.
The thing about it was that nobody knew about it, and then she had to fight everybody, the family and everybody, because people that weren't educated towards that said it was allergies and different things, and they don't believe it. So she had not only a fight about her own life here with the baby, but she's fighting everybody around her, the non-believers, the people just yelling at her and telling her, and I'll give her anything I want, and give her pizza and whatever. And that was the problem, because it's not only the patient with autism or the family, it's the 90% of people around that situation that don't understand, care, or want to know. And that is where the problem comes in. It's not only the families that are doing it, it's the 90% of other people, whether it's congressmen, senators, or with pharmaceuticals, whatever's going on, that's protecting it. And what's happening, there's a war going on with people, with children, and the families of it, and the consequences, divorces, family structure, money, doctor bills, just a life that nobody understands past that patient. It's so monumental. That's what's going on. Plus, there's no help. And what's happening in this day and age with everybody's so tight with money, living week to week, the patients fall by the wayside. The parents fall by the wayside, and they're giving all their money and faith into doctors, but who's helping them? So it's just a very, very bad situation going on. But what the main thing is people do not realize that the patient and the parents of that patient is not only a situation, it's the 90% of people that are attacking these people.
Yeah.
And the belief window is so shallow and small that you're inundated between schools and everything else that's going on. You're fighting a war that's not ending. And we've been seeing it 18 years, and it's cruel, it's despicable, and that's what's happening. It's greed, it's profit, it's money, and that's what they're going to keep doing, because there's not enough people speaking out.
Right, not if we've got anything to do with it. That's why we're on
It's
our own.
yeah.
But I forgot to mention, when she first started school, she was a little over 3, and she was on the special diet, and she was still very tiny because she had failure to thrive. And remember coming, we had to meet with the psychologist, and the psychologist actually had the nerve to say to me that I had an issue with food, and I was doing this on purpose because I just wanted to have a little dolly because of the way I dressed her and made her look.
Right.
That's how sick this was, and she was going to call CPS on me, and Dr. Boris had to step in to say that no, she has
I'm sorry you've been through this. It's painful, it's hurtful,
and not only that, it divided my family. I have not lived with my sons for the past 11 years. My house, I lost.
Where are your children? Where are your boys?
Right now, they currently live in Island Park in a house.
Yeah.
With each other and some roommates.
Right.
But I was
Why? Because of this?
Because what happened was, when I was going through the divorce in 2005 in Nassau County Supreme Court, a lot of Andy Wakefield stuff came out then from the media saying he was a fraud and there's no such thing and we're quacks. And they ordered me to move out of my house. And he got, I did. He got custody of the 2 my older sons. And me and Taylor started anew in my hometown when my parents grew
Right.
up in
Floral Park.
and Floral Park, and we lived in a small apartment on top of a liquor store. And Taylor went through some really bad stuff in that school district, where I then had to do a due process and fight really hard to get my daughter in a placement where she needed, which changed her life around. And now I was poisoned there by mold 2 years ago.
I remember that.
Yeah, and I had to leave, and now we're in our new location in Oceanside. And we're just trying to see what the next step is, because she is 18 years old, and we don't know what the future is going to hold, because there's not much out there to help her.